Hi guys, I'm back again today with the continuation of the 27 undeniable miracles of the Quran, and this is the part 2. So let's continue. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's get it.
Darker, i.e., darkness takes place in layers of light. Below a depth of 1,000 meters, there is complete darkness.
I went back.
Number 2, the sun's rays are absorbed by clouds, which in turn scatter light rays, thus causing a layer of darkness under the clouds. This is the first layer of darkness. When light rays reach the surface of the ocean, they are reflected by the wave surface, giving it a shiny appearance. Therefore, it is the waves which reflect light and cause darkness. The unreflected light penetrates into the depths of the ocean. Therefore, the ocean has two parts: the surface characterized by light and warmth, and the depth characterized by darkness. The surface is further separated from the deep part of the ocean by waves. The internal waves cover the deep waters of seas and oceans because the deep waters have a higher density than the waters above them. The darkness begins below the internal waves. Even the fish in the depths of the ocean cannot see. Their only source of light is from their own bodies. The Quran rightly mentions darkness in a vast deep ocean overwhelmed with waves looped by waves. In other words, above these waves are more types of waves, i.e., those found on the surface of the ocean. The Quranic verse continues to say, topped by dark clouds, depths of darkness, one above another. These clouds, as explained, are barriers one over the other that further causes darkness by absorption of colors at different levels. Professor Durga Rao concluded by saying, 1400 years ago, a normal human being could not even explain this phenomenon in so much detail. Thus, the information must have come from a supernatural source. Mountains are like pegs. In geology, the phenomenon of folding is a recently discovered fact. Folding is responsible for the formation of mountain ranges. The Earth's crust, on which we live, is like a solid shell, while the deeper layers are hot and fluid, and thus inhospitable to any form of life. It is also known that the stability of the mountains is linked to the phenomenon of folding, for it was the folds that were to provide the foundations for the reliefs that constitute the mountains. Geologists tell us that the radius of the Earth is about 3,750 miles, and the crust on which we live is very thin, ranging between 1 and 30 miles. Since the crust is thin, it has a high possibility of shaking. Mountains act like stakes or tent pegs that hold the Earth's crust and give it stability. The Quran contains exactly such a description in the following verse. Have we not made the earth as a wide expanse and the mountains as pegs? Al-Quran, chapter 78, verses 6 and 7. The word awtad means stakes or pegs, like those used to anchor a tent, and they are the deep foundations of geological folds. A book named Earth is considered as a basic reference textbook on geology in many universities around the world. One of the authors of this book is Frank Press, who was the president of the Academy of Sciences in the USA for 12 years and was a science advisor to former US President Jimmy Carter. In this book, he illustrates the mountain in a wedge shape and the mountain itself as a small part of the whole, whose root is deeply entrenched in the ground. According to Dr. Press, the mountains play an important role in stabilizing the crust of the earth. The Quran clearly mentions the function of the mountains in preventing the earth from shaking. And we have set on the earth mountains standing firm, lest it should shake with them. Al-Quran, chapter 21, verse 31. The Quranic descriptions are perfect agreement with modern geological data. Mountains firmly fixed. The surface of the earth is broken into many rigid plates that are about 100 kilometers in thickness. These plates float on a partially molten region called a asthenosphere. Mountain formations occur at the boundary of the plates. The Earth's crust is 5 kilometers thick below oceans, about 35 kilometers thick below flat continental surfaces, and almost 80 kilometers thick below great mountain ranges. These are the strong foundations on which mountains stand. The Quran also speaks about the strong mountain foundations in the following verse. And the mountains hath he firmly fixed. Al-Quran, chapter 79, verse 32. Human beings created from nutfa, or minute quantity of liquid. The glorious Quran mentions no less than 11 times that the human being is created from nutfa, which means a minute quantity of liquid or a trickle of liquid which remains after emptying a cup. This is mentioned in several verses of the Quran, including chapters 22 verse 5 and chapter 23 verse 13. Science has confirmed in recent times that only 1 out of an average of 3 million sperms is required for fertilizing the ovum. This means that only a 1 to 3 millionth part, or 0.00003% of the quantity of sperms that are emitted, is required for fertilization. In 1925, an American astronomer by the name of Edwin Hubble provided observational evidence that all galaxies are receding from one another, which implies that the universe is expanding. The expansion of the universe is now an established scientific fact. Yep. This is what Al-Quran says regarding the nature of the universe. With the power and skill did we construct the firmament, for it is we who create the vastness of space. Al-Quran 51:47. The Arabic word musi'un is correctly translated as expanding it, and it refers to...
I like it when it goes deep into this type of details that we would never understand, because in the English term, or in the English translation, in the English translation, yeah, it makes sense, but like we will lose some of the context. So the fact that she's explaining like the Arabic and how this works and that works will make it even more like whoa. So I like this
of the expanding vastness of the universe. Stephen Hawking, in his book A Brief History of Time, says, "The discovery that the universe is expanding was one of the great intellectual revolutions of the 20th century. The Quran mentioned the expansion of the universe before even man learned how to build a telescope." Honey has healing properties. The bee assimilates juices of various kinds of flowers and fruit and forms within its body the honey, which it stores in its cells of wax. Only a couple of centuries ago, man came to know that honey comes from the belly of the bee. This fact was mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago in the following verse. "There issues from within their bodies a drink of varying colors, wherein is healing for men." Al-Quran chapter 16, verse 69. We are now aware that honey has a healing property and also a mild antiseptic property. The Russians used honey to cover their wounds in World War II. The wound would retain moisture and would leave very little scar tissue. Due to the density of honey, no fungus or bacteria would grow in the wound. A person suffering from an allergy of a particular plant may be given honey from that plant so that the person develops resistance to that allergy. Honey is rich in fructose and vitamin K. Thus, the knowledge contained in the Quran regarding honey, its origin and properties, was far ahead of the time it was revealed. Every living thing is made of water. Consider the following Quranic verse. "Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit of creation before we clove them asunder? We made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe?" Al-Quran chapter 21, verse 30. Only after advances have been made in science do we now know that cytoplasm, the basic substance of the cell, is made up of 80% water. Modern research has also revealed that most organisms consist of 50 to 90% water, and that every living entity requires water for its existence. Was it possible 14 centuries ago for any human being to guess that every living being was made of water? Moreover, would such a guess be conceivable by a human being in the deserts of Arabia, where there has always been scarcity of water? The following verse refers to the creation of animals from water. "And Allah has created every animal from water." Al-Quran chapter 24, verse 45. The following verse refers to the creation of human beings from water. "It is He who has created man from water. Then has He established relationships of lineage and marriage, for thy Lord has power over all things." Al-Quran chapter 25, verse 54. Plants created in pairs, male and female. Previously, humans did not know that plants too have male and female gender distinctions. Botany states that every plant has a male and female gender.
Did you know?
Even the plants that are unisexual have distinct elements of both male and female. "And He has sent down water from the sky. With it we have produced diverse pairs of plants, each separate from the others." Al-Quran chapter 20, verse 53. Human beings created from sulala, or quintessence of liquid.
So hot, or what?
And made his progeny from a quintessence of the nature of a fluid despised. Al-Quran, chapter 32, verse 8. The Arabic word sulala means quintessence or the best part of a whole. We have come to know now that only one single spermatozoon that penetrates the ovum is required for fertilization, out of the several millions produced by man. That one spermatozoon out of several millions is referred in the Quran as sulala. Sulala also means gentle extraction from a fluid. The fluid refers to both male and female germinal fluids containing gametes. Both ovum and sperm are gently extracted from their environments in the process of fertilization. The bee. And thy Lord taught the bee to build its cells in hills, on trees, and in men's habitations, then to eat of all the produce of the earth, and find with skill the spacious paths of its Lord. Al-Quran, chapter 16, verses 68 through 69. Von Frisch received the Nobel Prize in 1973 for his research on the behavior and communication of bees. The bee, after discovering any new garden or flower, goes back and tells its fellow bees the exact direction and map to get there, which is known as bee dance. The meanings of this insect's movements that are intended to transmit information between worker bees have been discovered scientifically using photography and other methods. The Quran mentions in the above verse how the bee finds with skill the spacious paths of its Lord. The worker bee, or the soldier bee, is actually a female bee. In Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verses 68 through 69, the gender used for the bee is the female gender, fasruki and kuli, indicating that the bee that leaves its home for gathering food is a female bee. In other words, the soldier or worker bee is a female bee. In fact, in Shakespeare's play Henry IV, some of the characters speak about bees and mention that the bees are soldiers and that they have a king. That is what people thought in Shakespearean times. They thought that the worker bees are male bees and that they go home and are answerable to a king bee. This, however, is not true. The worker bees are females and they do not report to a king bee but to a queen bee. But it took modern investigations in the last 300 years to discover this.
Wow. The ants and the bees are fascinating.
And we send the fecundating winds, then cause the rain to descend from the sky, therewith providing you with water in abundance. Al-Quran, chapter 15, verse 22. The Arabic word used here is lawaqih, which is the plural of laqih from laqaha, which means to impregnate or fecundate. In this context, impregnate means that the wind pushes the clouds together, increasing the condensation that causes lightning and thus rain. A similar description is found in the Quran. It is Allah who sends the winds, and they raise the clouds. Then does He spread them in the sky as He wills and break them into fragments, until thou seest raindrops issue from the midst thereof. Then when He has made them such of His servants as He wills, behold, they do rejoice. Al-Quran, chapter 30, verse 48. The Quranic descriptions are absolutely accurate and agree perfectly with modern data on hydrology. The sun will extinguish after a certain period. The light of the sun is due to a chemical process on its surface that has been taking place continuously for the past 5 billion years. It will come to an end at some point of time in the future when the sun will be totally extinguished, leading to the extinction of all life on earth. Regarding the impermanence of the sun's existence, the Quran says, "And the sun runs its course for a period determined for it. That is the decree of Him, the exalted in might, the all-knowing." Al-Quran 36:38. The Arabic word used here is mustaqar, which means a place of time that is determined. Thus the Quran says that the sun runs towards a determined place and will do so only up to a predetermined period of time, meaning that it will end or extinguish.
That's so fascinating.
This is Iman Haggag recording Spider's Web, or Home is Fragile. The Quran mentions in Surah Al-Ankabut, the parable of those who take protectors other than Allah is that of the spider, who builds to itself a house. But truly the flimsiest of houses is the spider's house, if but they knew. Al-Quran, chapter 29, verse 41. Besides giving the physical description of the spider's web as being very flimsy, delicate, and weak, the Quran also stresses on the flimsiness of the relationship in the spider's house, where the female spider many times kills its mate, the male spider. For a long time, European philosophers and scientists believed that the Earth stood still in the center of the universe and every other body, including the sun, moved around it. In the West, this geocentric concept of the universe was prevalent right from the time of Ptolemy in the 2nd century BC. In 1512, Nicholas Copernicus put forward his heliocentric theory of planetary motion, which asserted that the sun is motionless at the center of the solar system with the planets revolving around it. In 1609, the German scientist Johannes Kepler published the Astronomia Nova. In this piece, he concluded that not only do the planets move in elliptical orbits around the sun, they also rotate upon their axes at irregular speeds. With this knowledge, it became possible for European scientists to explain correctly many of the mechanisms of the solar system, including the sequence of night and day. After these discoveries, it was thought that the sun was stationary and did not rotate about its axis like the Earth. I remember having studied this fallacy from geography books during my school days. Consider the following Quranic verse. It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. All the celestial bodies swim along, each in its rounded course. Al-Quran 21:33. The Arabic word used in the above verse is yasbahun. The word yasbahun is derived from the word sabaha. It carries with it the idea of motion that comes from any moving body. If you use the word for a man on the ground, it would not mean that he is rolling, but would mean he is walking or running. If you use the word for a man in water, it would not mean that he is floating, but would mean that he is swimming. Similarly, if you use the word yasbah for a celestial body such as the sun, it would not mean that it is only flying through space, but would rather mean that it is also rotating as it goes through space. Most of the school textbooks have incorporated the fact that the sun rotates about its axis. The rotation of the sun about its own axis can be proved with the help of an equipment that projects the image of the sun on the tabletop so that one can examine the image of the sun without being blinded. It is noticed that the sun has spots which complete a circular motion once every 25 days, i.e., the sun takes approximately 25 days to rotate around its axis. In fact, the sun travels through space at roughly 150 miles per second and takes about 200 million years to complete one revolution around the center of our Milky Way galaxy. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up to the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit, according to law. Al-Quran 36:40. The above verse mentions an essential fact discovered by modern astronomy, i.e., the existence of the individual orbits of the sun and the moon and their journey through space with their own motion. The fixed place towards which the sun travels, carrying with it the solar system, has been located exactly by modern astronomy. It has been given a name, the solar apex. The solar system is indeed moving in space towards a point situated in the constellation of Hercules, the Alpha layer, whose exact location is firmly established. The moon rotates around its axis in the same duration that it takes to revolve around the Earth. It takes approximately 29.5 days to complete one rotation. One cannot help but be amazed at the scientific accuracy of the Quran.
Right? Right? Like, why aren't people watching this video? Like, the non-believers, why are they not watching this video? Because obviously non-believers are the ones who are close-minded, right? Because you're not gonna be a non-believer if you are open-minded, to be honest. At least if you don't believe in religion or a specific religion, at least believe in like a creator, right? I was gonna say something, I just forgot already.
The existence of subatomic particles. In ancient times, a well-known theory by the name of theory of atomism was widely accepted. This theory was originally proposed by the Greeks, in particular a man named Democritus, who lived about 23 centuries ago. Democritus and the people that came after him assumed that the smallest unit of matter was the atom. The Arabs used to believe the same. The Arabic word dharra is most commonly meant an atom. In recent times, modern science has discovered that it is possible to split even an atom. That the atom can be split further is a development of the 20th century. 14 centuries ago, this concept would have appeared unusual, even to an Arab. For him, the dharra was the limit beyond one could not go. The following Quranic verse, however, refuses to acknowledge this limit. The unbelievers say, "Never to us will come the hour," say, "Nay, But most surely by my Lord, it will come upon you, by him who knows the unseen, from whom is not hidden the least little atom in the heavens or on earth, nor is there anything less than that, or greater, but is in the record perspicuous. Al-Quran, chapter 34, verse 3. This verse refers to the omniscience of God, his knowledge of all things, hidden or apparent. It then goes further and says that God is aware of everything, including what is smaller or bigger than the atom. Thus, the verse clearly shows that it is possible for something smaller than the atom to exist, a fact only discovered recently by modern science.
How it all
The
comes
flight
together.
of the birds. Regarding the flight of birds, the Quran says, "Do they not look at the birds, held poised in the midst of the air and the sky? Nothing holds them up but the power of Allah. Verily in this are signs for those who believe." Al-Quran, chapter 16, verse 79. A similar message is repeated in the Quran in the verse, "Do they not observe the birds above them, spreading their wings and folding them in? None can uphold them except Allah, most gracious.
Like, how
Truly
did they
it
learn
is
to
He
be a
that
bird,
watches
right?
over all things." Al-Quran, chapter 67.
It's not like they were born and then they just, like, their parents taught them to fly. No, they just flew on your own. So, the first bird, how did they know this is a way to fly, right? So,
Verse 19. The Arabic word
if you don't believe in
amsaka
God, how do you explain
literally
that?
means to put one's hand on, seize, hold someone back, which expresses the idea that Allah holds the bird up in His power. These verses stress the extremely close dependence of the bird's behavior on divine order. Modern scientific data has shown the degree of perfection attained by certain species of birds with regard to the programming of their movements. It is only the existence of a migratory program in the genetic code of the birds that can explain the long and complicated journey that very young birds, without any prior experience and without any guide, are able to accomplish. They are
Right?
also able to return to the departure point on a definite date. Professor Hamburger, in his
How
book
did you
Power
know?
and Fragility, gives the example of a
He's eating
mutton
a
bird
burger.
that lives in the Pacific, with its journey of over 15,000 miles in the shape of a figure 8.
Oh.
It makes this journey over a period of 6 months and comes back to its departure point with a maximum delay of 1 week. The highly complicated instructions for such a journey have to be
I
contained
would
in the bird's
not
nervous
be able
cells.
to find my way.
They are definitely programmed. Should we not reflect on the identity of this programmer?
I know, right? Like somebody, like if you're a non-believer, right? Like explain to me how that works, like how a bird flies, how the bees do all their thing, and the ants and the spiders. Like explain, even if you will use science to explain it, please do so. And I know it's been explained scientifically here too, but yeah, that would be fascinating to hear. This section for today, this part 2 of today, reminded me of J. Cole's verse. I know some of you, music is not your, it's not, you know, you don't listen to music, which is fair. But one of his lyrics recently, he said, "I have a friend who is smart, but dumb as HELL. He's smart, but dumb as hell. Because he's an unbeliever, his friend, right? So that's why he calls him dumb. Like he's very smart, he's very, very smart, but then he's dumb because he doesn't believe in God." And he's like, what is the specific lyrics? I will check it out. It's so in line with the topic today, that's why. So let me check. Okay, "I got a friend smart as tit, but he's stupid as hell. He swears that God ain't real, since it ain't no way to prove it himself." So he can't, because his friend cannot prove it, so he doesn't believe in God, he said in his verse. And then J. Cole goes to say, "As if the universe ain't enough, as if the volcanoes ain't erupt, as if the birds don't chirp, I can't even pronounce that word, as if a trillion nerve don't work in a human body, who would I be without the creator of this theater beside me to gently guide me? some days I wonder if I need to pick a different hobby. But anyways, yeah, so that verse alone just really reminds me of what we just watched a while ago, especially with the birds, and then the amazing creation, right? So like, I really love J. Cole, just because I call him a poetic preacher. Obviously, he's a beautiful believer, but you know, still with some flaws too. Obviously, human beings, we're flawed. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I just wanted to say that because that really reminded me of this verse. This verse really stuck to me a lot, from J. Cole. There's a lot of verses actually that sticks with me from him as well, just because he speaks sense. And thank you for this request, because it was really beautiful, and there's so much more fascinating videos that are to come, kind of like under the same topic. So if you're interested, let me know down in the comments. If there's other videos you want to check out, let me know down in the comments, or buy me a coffee. If you like the video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.